I've been there, but I'm telling you that helping people helps you. In order for my kids to have discipline, it actually makes me disciplined, and I don't always like that. If you think that everything is happening to you, you cannot get past that and be successful. The sun's always going to shine, wear sunglasses, but it's like, yes, this is happening, but like, how do I work around this? So good. What is so good? And you're like, everything is so good.
Hello, and welcome to the Brent and Peck podcast. My guest today is Parker Harger, Marine Corps veteran who worked for the Idaho State Police, is a cybersecurity professional, husband, father of 5, and the founder of So Good, a community-driven effort focused on meeting real needs with practical compassion. Parker's story runs through military service, law enforcement, tech, faith, and family, and all of it has shaped the mission he's living now, helping people in simple ways that actually matter. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So I know early on you went into the Marines. I was curious what prompted you for that.
That's a great question. Someone asked me that yesterday. I joined after 2011 or, September 11th in 2001, actually. And I mean, if you lived during that time, it's interesting because you kind of have this feeling that everybody knows about it. And then you talk to your kids. I mean, my kids are between 16 and 19. And most of them, all of them were born after, but they don't really have a sense of what happened. And that's interesting to me. So, I went to college for a couple of years and a Bible-based college called BMI, Bible Missionary Institute in Rock Island, Illinois. And I had come back and after 2 years of there, wasn't sure that was for me. I think a lot of us that grew up in that particular church, that's just something we did and went there for a couple of years. I don't have anything negative to say about it. It was a great time, met a lot of great people. But anyways, I came back that summer and then was working. And then September 11th, 2001 happened. I had graduated in 99, so that was 2 years later. And I've told this story before, but I remember my first memory of 9/11, the thing that kind of like was sticking in my mind was George Bush went down the next day. And it's interesting to talk about presidents now because it's so political, whoever you say, but it wasn't political then, or at least it didn't feel like it was political. And George Bush was down there, and he was the president, and he had a bullhorn. And I remember there was a cross made out of steel beams, and it had a flag draped over it. And, he talked about serving our country, and he was going to be there for everybody. And, you're 19 years, I think I was 20 years old at the time. And I was like wanted to do something for my country. So I actually joined the Air Force. And a few weeks before I was actually supposed to go in, I ran into a Marine recruiter and he was like, "You really want to go in the Air Force?" And I was like, "Yeah, sounds cool." And he was like, "Yeah, but you're going to have to tell people that after you get out for the rest of your life. Like, think about that. You could be a Marine." I was like, oh, okay. So I joined the Marine Corps, and none of my family was prior Marines. We didn't, have a lot of veteran-related things in the family. But it was a time in America where I feel like everyone was kind of pitching in. And that happens everywhere. Like, if you go down through history, any sort of thing, people rise to the occasion, So it was just timing and worked out for me.
Yeah. What did you do in the Marines?
So my main job was working on computer systems with aircraft. I mean, that's probably the easiest thing to say. I had no technical background, none. I mean, I grew up in a family. My dad and mom were both school teachers. My dad did odd jobs to make ends meet. He worked for a tree service. He just did handyman stuff. Smart guy from Idaho. So for me, it was just an opportunity to learn something new. And when I got to Okinawa, Japan, I just really fell in love with working on computer systems. And again, just an opportunity. A person wasn't there for a couple weeks. They were like, here, just sit at a desk and watch us. I think they were just running C shell commands on just straight up Unix. And they had some IBM AIX. And I was like, what is that? And it was cool. And I grew up with, just Apple IIe's and the, big floppy drives and,
Yep.
Oregon Trail was 2 different discs that you would trade. So, I mean, coding was all there was. Like nowadays, coding's cool and you can do some AI and chat type stuff. But back then it was just like, just language change directories type things was, there was a lot of basic stuff that, just was DOS prompts. Was in Windows. So if you could do stuff like that, if you knew any sort of, typing and tabbing and understanding what you were trying to write, and I loved it. And so that kind of was my avenue into IT now. I mean, I got out and then only got one job offer. I put job offers all over the United States. I was living in Yuma, Arizona, and got a job offer to work at Idaho State Police and work in their IT department and run what they call CJIS, Criminal Justice Information Systems, and ILITS, which is Idaho Law Enforcement's systems. It just, right place, right time.
Nice. I remember my first computer was DOS and Windows 3.1, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of those games. I'm a software developer now, but I remember my early touching with program wasn't so much programming. It was actually just all formulas in Excel.
Right.
So like I was homeschooled. And so I was like, let me write a program. I can write out all the tests, build a whole application just in Excel. So I got really, really good at formulas.
Right.
And then that kind of hung around for a while. Then I started messing around in HTML and just toying around with it, and then didn't touch it again until my current job. I went in as an analyst, and it's like, I just want to be a developer, taught myself to program, and then got back into it. But
that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think the cool thing for me is like, it's so, it's like math, this happens and that happens, and you'll have bugs every once in a while. But I mean, for me, I loved that part of it because it was like, I could follow it, it was a programmable thing that I could manipulate to do something. And the more you learn, the more time you put into it, the better results. So, yeah. So that was my time in the Marine Corps, was mostly in the air wing of the Marine Corps, working on computer systems that had to do with avionics equipment.
Nice. I have a couple friends that work in maybe adjacent areas, but not actually working on the programming side.
Right.
I was always curious. I looked at going into the military. I was actually 15 minutes away from MEPS to sign, and I would have been in when the 07-08 housing crisis happened, and they stopped accepting all med waivers.
Oh, okay.
And then I just decided, I guess, private sector is what I'm doing.
Yeah. It was good for me. I mean, honestly, I tell kids all the time, between 18 and 22, if you don't know what you want to do, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Coast Guard, you get free room and board, you get GI Bill after you get out, you get to serve your country. I mean, in other countries like Israel, I think I don't know if it's mandatory, but you have to do some sort of government job for 2 years. So, I think they work in the postal service, things like that. But I think it's great. I mean, you get work experience and get to meet people. So it was very good for me.
Yeah. My dad was Air Force for 27 years, retired as a chief.
Awesome.
I think one of the reasons I wish I had got in is I wished I had been more disciplined. And I think that's one thing the military teaches very well is the discipline.
Absolutely. And that's such a great takeaway, is that all those little things add up. And someone said to me the other day, like, why is there the Marine Corps when there's the Army? And if you look into its history, it was just like a group of people that were disciplined, that did things, regimentally, and had, actionable results. So I love that. I love that. Even with my kids now, because we have a blended family. I have two, 19, almost 20, and then 15. And then my wife has three, 4 boys and a girl. But that daily waking up and making your bed and doing things just leads to success.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Jocko Willink?
Yeah, I actually just saw him about 3 weeks ago in Las Vegas. I was at a conference and he was the speaker. And he has this book on extreme ownership.
Yep.
I don't know if you've heard of that, but I love that message. Now, it's hard to do, but his kind of thing is just, the sun's always going to shine, wear sunglasses, but it's like, yes, this is happening, but like, how do I work around this, right? Like, even in like he was talking about in his units, a person would do something wrong and his superiors would say, get on that person and tell them, hey, you messed up. But he's like, I would go to them and say, what did I fail to train you on? What did I miss that made you not be at the right place at the right time? And I love that his first thing was, what am I doing? And then the person would say, no, it has nothing to do with you. It's me. I was this or I was that. But yeah, and if you've ever heard him speak, it's just incredible. But he talks about how even the people that were above him, those servant leaders, they made their bed and they swept and they did all the things. So yeah, that is the secret sauce to me in the Marine Corps and in anything. It's that the little things add up.
Yeah,
they just absolutely do.
I haven't read that book yet. I read another one of his, Discipline Equals Freedom.
Okay.
And then so our daughter just got her black belt in Taekwondo, and we've done a series of different books. One of those was his Warrior Kid series that he wrote, and those were really good. It's like, get up early, do those exercises, plan out what you're going to do, stick with it, just build that discipline.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and the cool thing about him, I mean, he's incredible, and a lot of successful people is like the success speaks for itself. So if you go in and you read it and you're like, man, that's not for me. It's like, well, you can kind of see that this, this seems to work, and yeah, I mean, I think he was talking about in the conference that I went to about how I think it's 17 days is how long people usually go to the gym after January 1st, but it takes 21 days for a habit to set in, and how people kind of give up right at that point. So I'm just a huge advocate for that. With anyone that I talk to, yes, there are things in life that will, that will create setbacks for you. That's just a given. Some people are born on third base as it is. It's like they have, maybe they were born in with money or with different things like that. But that idea that you are in control and that you're almost, all of the problems most of the time, you're your worst enemy, and all it really takes is, some discipline. Back to the military, it absolutely helped me. And I didn't even mean for it to do it. Right? It wasn't like I joined it thinking, oh, I'll get the discipline and that will help me. It was just kind of one of those things that just comes along with doing it.
Yeah. Interesting corollary. Like, do you know why the public schools were created?
No.
So public schools are a relatively recent thing. They were actually created, I don't remember if it was during wartime or not, but it was created around the Industrial Revolution. Okay. Let's get them into school and prep them for like a 9 to 5. You're going to go in and learn to be on a scheduled go in and do this on repeat every day. Yeah. So it was preparing for military and it was preparing for industrial work.
Yeah.
So like I was homeschooled. I didn't like the structure as much.
Right.
But a lot of people aren't getting that discipline out of public schools anymore. They goof off or do whatever. And that's one of the things I've really liked about the military.
Yeah.
There's consequences if you goof off. Like you're going to have that discipline instilled whether you want it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just loving this talk track because to me, I don't know how to fix things, but there's that saying that like easy times make for,
weak men,
and then weak men make for hard times, and then hard times make, strong men and then back and forth. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, I'd love to point the finger at different things and say, wow, look, we don't have any structure, but like, we don't need any of the structure because everything is going great. And so it's like one of those catch-22s that like, I don't know if you could stop people and go in like, hey, this is the problem. The weakness of the character is the eroding of what made you successful, right? I mean, you look at like Walmart, like Walton, you know, he's like got up at 6 a.m. and he's building this thing, and then you give it to your kids, but they don't know that, you know?
Yep.
You know, there's a phrase in the Bible that's like there arose a group of people that didn't know Joseph, right? It's like when they were in Egypt. And here's this guy, Joseph, I mean, just from the stories, not just from like from a religious aspect, just the stories, there was this guy, Joseph, and he's down in Egypt and he's saving all these people, and he's having these dreams, and he's working with all the people. But then there comes a time where it's like, who was that guy? You know, and that's happened with September 11th. And so, obviously it comes down to parenting, you know, over public schools. But, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of that, because to me, I've found, at least in my life and people that I've followed, that success is where opportunity meets the dedication, that daily thing. And so you kind of have to have both, because I've given opportunities to people who aren't disciplined and they don't do anything with that. And then you have people that work really hard and are very disciplined, but never get the opportunity, right? They're just, you know, they're working for a guy and they just never get seen, right? But they've been there every single day. But I feel like it's the apex where opportunity meets that. Yeah. So I've told my kids, they'll be like, oh man, that's what I want. You know, I want that. And I'm like, that right there, you know, Elon Musk, that was a daily regiment. You look at the guy who started Amazon, you know, do you honestly think that you have Amazon and AWS if you don't have a guy who is so dedicated to getting books out on time and getting up every day and making sure the website was up, you know? It's that stuff. It's like the story when you were a kid about the you know, who's going to help me bake the bread, right? There's like a story of all these animals, and I think it's like a rooster, and it's like, I'm going to make some bread. Who will help me go get the wheat? It's like, I don't want to. It's like, who will help me grind it? And then everybody wants to be there when the bread is baked, but it's like the dedication to getting up and doing all those things. So to me, that's the most important part. I mean, school is great, but that's why I've been glad to see that public schools at least have gone toward like no cell phones and things like that in the classroom. Yeah. Because if you're not getting that, discipline, how are you going to apply that in life? And it's weird just hearing my voice. I'm like, man, I sound like an old person, but it is, because life is very tough. As you get out there, without that discipline, you will not succeed. Now, every once in a while, yeah, there's the outliers. There's like TikTok stars and people that just randomly run into stuff. But by and large, it is going to be discipline. Yeah. When you look at like some of the most famous sport teams there are, it's really the guys that are like offensive linemen. You know, it's the guys in the trenches. It's the guys that are out there before everybody, before practice, and leave after. Yeah. It's sweat equity.
Well, you think back to like the Utah Jazz, Karl Malone. Yeah. He was terrible at free throws. Right. And so he's like, I'm just going to practice this until I never miss. Yeah. And he became phenomenal at free throws, right? Yeah. But for a long time, it was just a struggle for him. Yeah. You think through, was it LeBron James puts in more work than anyone? Right. Yeah. Because his thing is like, doesn't matter what people tell you, you just put in more work and practice until nothing they say matters.
For sure. And I don't know how to get that across these days. That's something I really struggle with, you know. I see it and I think I don't know where we've kind of lost that. I don't know if it's just because America is so great and we have so much. And the other thing too is like, I honestly feel like the American dream is harder than it's ever been too. I don't want to gloss over that. You know, right. I see kids between 17 and 20 putting in all the time and effort, and they can't buy a house because the mortgage rates are so high and stuff. And so I want to be careful like, I don't want to be a person that just goes out there and is like, hey, you work hard, you know, you can get it. It's harder than it's ever been. You know, there is some difficulties, but again, I think that's where the discipline does take in it, because maybe it takes you to 27. But I will say, you know, you look at like, you know, let's just say between 19 and 23, I see more young people like just taking an easy way. Like, for instance, like I Uber Eats everything to my house, or you know, it's just kind of like not actually walking to the stores and doing things like that. And I really feel like that's kind of part of it. We have such an ease, and it was easier for us, I'm going to say my age group, because we didn't have those. And so we were just kind of forced down that discipline route. Does that make us better? I don't know. And I think I start to wonder that sometimes. I'm like, oh, I was more disciplined than this generation. But it was like, I had to be, you know? Yeah. I had to be. We didn't have, like when I grew up in California, because we moved from Idaho to California when I was 7 or 8, we lived in a 1-bedroom duplex and we didn't have a washer and dryer. So we would hang the clothes out on the line. Well, now time is of the essence, right? Like you have to do things because they take time. Where now, like all of my stuff is, you know, it has internet on the washer and dryer. I can start it from my phone. And so some of those have made us less aware that the difficulties of life is what made us successful.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a catch-22. How do you make life harder on your kids when you don't have to? When our parents would say, you can't have a bike for Christmas, it wasn't because they didn't want you to have one. It's because they just couldn't.
Yeah.
So a lot of that you felt, you knew your place, you knew that you were helping the family, and you were very aware of the difficulties of life, where I don't know if my kids have felt that, and I don't know how to, you can only create it naturally.
Yeah.
It's really hard. You know, you listen to kids talk about growing up in World War II and doing war bonds and stamps and collecting metal. Well, when your dad's gone, and you know, it's like there's a sense of that, and it's going to be hard to keep, you know. So things kind of have to go down, if you will, for people to go, oh, this is why we did that. So
I think there's a couple extra components there too. Like we used to have more kids than we do now. And so you learn some responsibility in helping take care of your siblings for large families.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the average number of kids per couple now? It's like 1.5. Like we're below replacement rate.
Yeah.
And so you've lost some of that responsibility in taking care of siblings too.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. And I'm sure, you know, 50 years from now, someone's going to go look back on like the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, like where things went. But I agree. But it's hard to see, because everything is good, you know.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see, you know, you miss some of that stuff. But I'd like to think that it's still out there. I mean, I see in football programs across high schools, at wrestling, you know, there's still some of that dedication and discipline. And again, I do believe that, you know, the good times make the weak, and then the weak make the hard times. I mean, it's over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can escape that. And if people say, oh, I don't know, you know, we've learned, you know, you go back to the like earliest literature. I don't know if we do, because it's very hard to live in that pocket. It's very hard to live in that world. And I even find it in my own life, right? Like I'll read something or watch something and be very inspired, but it's hard to keep that momentum. I mean, we tend to be much like the universe, where like if it's not moving, it gets moss, right? If it's not, you know, it collects dust, and we're very similar creatures to that. Like you almost, you know, have to force yourself. So I mean, everything we're talking about, they're all tie-ins, you know, and that the Marine Corps and the Army and those have still become. It's really cool to see, because there are a lot of things that don't exist anymore because they ran out of steam, you know?
Yeah.
You look at like the Salvation Army or something like that, and what it was in its heyday and what it became, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard to keep the vision.
In some ways, we're way better off than we ever do. Like, you'll hear people say, like, I wish I'd lived back in the 1800s. And it's like, do you really? Like, we don't have a concept. Like, there's poor people out there that are truly suffering.
Yeah.
But it's like, we don't have an honest concept to that anymore.
Right.
Because the poorest of us have a heater.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You had to go out and cut your firewood and make sure you had enough to get through the winter.
Yeah.
Or, most of us have ACs. We all walk around with a smartphone that's more capable than the computers that launched to the moon.
Absolutely. And I think about that, like, the toughest person out there would struggle in like 1776. I mean, we just absolutely struggle. I've read books by George Washington. He's one of my favorite, but like some of those guys would just go all winter with like rags wrapped around their feet. Like, it was unreal what just a regular 18 to 21-year-old person did. But you didn't know any better, And that's to me the key. I honestly believe that anyone, even the softest person, has no idea the limits they could push themselves if it was done to them. And it happens all the time. I mean, you look like what happened with October 7th, or what happened a few years ago when the Israeli thing happened. You saw just regular kids getting abducted, by another the Palestinians or whoever the group was. But then they were there for like 2 years. And I guarantee you they were much more resilient than they ever realized they would be. You know? And unfortunately, how terrible that situation is. But it shows you can actually do a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
And I found that in the Marine Corps. I found that to be true in all walks of life. You are way tougher than you think. When push comes to shove. When it actually comes down to it, the human spirit, the will to survive, the will to live, all those ones are unreal.
Yeah.
But we don't have to necessarily live there right now. And so I think we do things, we push ourselves to run 5Ks or marathons or go to the gym or sign up for things, because that is something that we don't, like, to your point, I don't look at October and think, man, I better have a cord of wood because I'm not going to make it through the winter. It's like, I'm not worried about it, Yeah. So that's definitely changed for sure.
Isn't that like one of the core principles of like the Navy SEALs? When you think you're done, you're only 30% of what you're capable of?
Absolutely. And I mean, I have found that so many times of being, when I was in the Marine Corps, of times where I was like, we are done. And then we went way beyond that. And then we went way beyond that,
Yeah. I think back early in my marriage, the first year of our marriage, I was working like 75 hours a week in a bakery, and that was in like 5 days. So, I mean, I was working like 17 and a half hour days, and, there was AC, but in a bakery, not really. It was 100, 110 degrees the whole time. And so 75 hours a week during our first year of marriage. My wife was working 80 hours a week. So we'd see each other very rarely during that time. And then we were talking to another young kid that we knew, and he was working part-time, struggling to pay his bills. He was just at like a fast food restaurant. His boss offered him full-time and offered him the opportunity, you'll be the first one I call, even if it takes overtime, if anyone calls out. And he said no, because it's like, no, because then I wouldn't be able to spend 4 hours a day with my girlfriend. Yeah. And it's like, people have lost that concept of sacrificing the now for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I think my whole life now revolves around how to help somebody that's looking to, help their future,
Yeah.
And I can't help everyone, and it bothers me sometimes, but that concept is something that you're talking about that it's hard to get across, because I don't know if I could go back in time and talk to my 18-year-old self, would I have put more money away? Would I have started my 401k? I'd probably be like, no, I'm having a good time here. And so it's, it's difficult, because I think to myself, how would I have got across to even my own self at that time, right?
It's hard because you don't know that you're really in a place you can listen. Yeah. There's kind of two concepts I wish I could have communicated to myself. but I don't carry regrets for my past.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to live in the past.
Right.
But one is don't become afraid of failure. Like failure is the most information-rich environment you can possibly be in. You learn more from failing than you ever do success.
For sure.
So it's like, don't be afraid to try things. Just go try, learn, and keep moving.
Yeah.
That's where people a lot of times give up. Like you'll see a graph. A lot of people think the graph of success is just a straight line. You put in consistent effort and it's just straight line up. And it's more hills and valleys.
Right.
And everybody gives up in these valleys. And it's like you're just on the edge of hitting the next peak going up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's hard, man. I mean, that is just hard. I think about like the times over the last few years I've been elk hunting and got lost. And when you can't see the tops of the trees and the mountains and stuff, I mean, and it can happen like in an instant. I've been on top of a ridge and been like, that's where I'm going. And then come down and be like, I'm completely lost. I don't know where I am down here. And it's interesting because all of the people I've ever talked to, and I don't like to say all because I think we use these all-inclusive words too much. You know, never and always. And it's like, never, come on. And but the vast majority of people I've talked to, their best times were their hardest times.
Yep.
Oh, I remember when my mom, and dad, split, and just me and my mom, and she was working 3 jobs, and our Christmas was amazing. And it's like, don't you see that? Like that work and that connection, that's where the true thing was. It was like the journey was the thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see that when you're in it. It's really hard. I mean, that's the phrase. You can't see the forest for the trees when you're in it, And my kids, they're like, I hate 10th grade, or I hate 11th grade. And I'm like, you're going to look back and think this was the easiest of all of them. This was when somebody was telling me what to do, and I knew where I was going, and now I'm making all those decisions, And my kids have gone back and said, oh, you remember that time, our house flooded? Oh, man, that was so great. We spent so many nights in a motel. It was so wonderful. And I'm like, that was the hardest time we ever had. So it is very interesting, those concepts that those difficult times shape us. There's a saying that I love to tell my kids, and it seems like I'm full of sayings, but they say, a calm sea never made a good sailor. And it's true. I mean, how are you going to learn how to be, a good sailor if you haven't gone through the storms and the winds? And they're the worst. They're just terrible. Yeah. And you don't know up from down, and you just see everything collapsing that you built, and it's really tough. But that's when you get tested. And
I think that's one of the approaches I try to keep on my mind as a parent is like, yes, it's my job to protect my children, but you can protect too much. Like, I want to leave them optimally challenged for where they're at. So, like, I'm not going to walk them up to the edge of a cliff and walk away, right? That's dangerous. But if they're going to climb up and they're only a couple feet up, if they fall, they'll learn. Like, you can't protect from every little thing. But you also want to put optimal challenge. One of the reasons we put our daughter in Taekwondo was like, we value respect and we value that discipline. So it's like, what can we do to really teach that? Well, there's very few things that teach respect and some of the discipline as well as martial arts. Right. You're going to practice the same kick 10,000 times, and you'll be able to look back and, we take videos of all the things, and it's like, look back and remember when you were this young. You remember how hard it was. Like, you could have given up. People don't realize that it's, like you said, the journey. When we're babies, we do this intuitively. We face setbacks and challenges, and we just get up and keep going. That's how you learn to walk. How many times did we fall? Right. If we had given up at any point, we never would have gone anywhere. Yeah. But it's like, how do you, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how do you keep them, I don't want to say embrace failure, as that makes it sound like I'm saying try to fail, but embrace it as in don't be afraid of it. Like, learn from it. Don't let it set you back. It's just something to propel you forward. So face those challenges, have that adventure, try things, stay consistent with it.
Yeah, it is the most difficult. Honestly, I think parents have it harder today than we've ever had. The phones, the internet, all that kind of stuff, the ease of comfort. It makes parenting difficult because it's really hard to have any sort of that hardship anymore. It kind of was a natural thing. And when you think about something like walking to school, you would walk to school and then you would just kind of be forced to interact with people. Well, now with phones, you can walk, but you could be listening to music or you could be watching, some TikTok videos. And so there's not any real hardships anymore. Like when we would go on a road trip, it would be like, this is boring. I want to play a game. So we'd be like, oh, look for the alphabet game, look for all the letters. Well, now it's like everyone has their phone, everyone has their headphones. And like, why would I take that away from them too? So I look at them and I go, oh, it's like, should we do it for the first hour? The other thing that I've found is that in order for my kids to have discipline, it actually makes me disciplined. And I don't always like that. And I didn't realize that most of what my parents were doing, my dad would be like, all right, Saturday morning, we're going to get up at 6 a.m. We're going to go fishing. And I was like, ugh. But then I realized now, it's like, why didn't he just stay in bed till noon? Like, I tell parents, if you're going to take away the phone, you have to play Monopoly. And no one wants to play Monopoly. I don't. Yep. I don't like playing those things. But in order to engage my kids on a Friday night, I have to play chess and I have to play checkers and I have to do those things. And they love it. But it's also on me too, because I realize I'm like, man, the Boise State game is on. They can go do their fun stuff. I can go do my fun stuff. And now we're both undisciplined, but like I'm just kind of allowing it to happen. So again, back to extreme ownership, it's like, what part am I playing in this? And so that's something that I would tell parents, but something I have to tell myself all the time. If I want my son to understand the hardships, I've got to take him hunting on a November cold day, but I've got to be cold too. I've got to, walk the trenches and get my feet wet and tired, and I think there was a part in American history where those were all necessities, right? Yes. Like we had to go hunt. So it was like, who cares what this kid thinks or what I think? But the ease has crept into the parents as well. And so it's easy to look at the kids and go, oh, come on. And I'm like, what did we fill that void with? So that's the other thing. If you're going to take that away, if you're going to take TV and movies and those kinds of things away, you have to fill that void with something. Otherwise, it's of no value.
I think there's another flip side element to that where I think it's a very easy trap for parents to fall into. But if we've ever faced challenges or hardship, like it's good to learn from what other people have faced. So a lot of us go in like, I don't want our kids to have to go through what we went through. Right. But we forget the other side of that. Like, then they're not going to get the lessons that we got out of that.
And that's exactly, I mean, I love that concept, but I don't know. I mean, that's why I love talking with people like you, asking other parents, how do you go through that? It's like you mentioned, I remember the one present Christmas times were my favorite, but how do I do that? Right? How do I pull back when it's like, I don't want you to have that one present Christmas because I remember that and that struggle. But then there's a part of me that's like, well, that was the best one, So it's like, how do you walk that line? So I feel like we have more responsibility now than our parents did because, again, a lot of that hardship was just a byproduct of the environment, right? And so parents will say, we were so much better parents. Look at the things we didn't give you. And I say, yeah, well, you couldn't. So think about that. That changes the game when you can't.
We have to teach the lessons that life just taught previously.
Right, exactly. And we don't want you to feel that, but then we have the necessity, we have the means to not make that happen to you. Yeah. So it's definitely something that I try to work on all the time. It's like, how do you keep your kids away from things that you struggled with? Like you mentioned, like AC. I remember growing up and we had a swamp cooler. That was it.
Yep.
And we would just sit in front of it in the summer and just, it's like you would go outside and play on the sprinklers. And like my house is like 68 all the time, AC is running. The kids have no idea about that, So should I turn it on and crank it up to 100 and make sure they run to the pool, It's just one of those things of life that we have to be cognizant that those hard times is what made them, but not just make them for no reason.
Yeah.
We have to fill them with something. You have to fill that void with something else, right? Like if you're not going to turn the AC on, you better put your kids in and go down to the Boise and float the river, because it can't be either one, right? Like you're going to have to fill that with something.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been pushing myself to do. If I see the kids and they're all playing games inside and it's a Sunday afternoon, it's like, we're going to go float the river. But you know what that means? It means I have to have 7 tubes inflated. I mean, I need a bottle of water for everybody. I need sunscreen, I've got to have one truck to drop me off at the start, one to take me to the top. So again, if you want that, you're going to have to be part of it.
Yeah.
They're not going to just learn it by saying, back in my day, we never did that. That's just kind of,
I think we've gotten very cemented in the idea that we can teach lessons without it costing us something in the process.
And so that's definitely a good nugget right there. You cannot teach it without it costing you the same,
Yeah.
And so with all of it, I mean, you talk about marriage, it's like, I'll feel like, oh, hey, we're not as close. It's like I feel a distance, and we're amazing. My wife and I are amazing, but I'm like, oh, when was the last time we did date night? When did I have to put in the effort, right?
Yeah.
So I have to put my phone in the truck and go for a walk and make reservations and do stuff because it takes an effort.
Yeah.
And the same with the kids. I can't just go, oh, this generation is not what mine was raised. Well, like, they never had a lot of the same hardships that I did. They don't know anything about them.
No.
And so maybe it's not my job to make them hard, but to show them the value of hard work.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things here. One, I have kind of our own example of us having to put in that work. Like I said, our daughter just got her black belt in Taekwondo. But there for a little while, sometimes she wasn't wanting to practice. And so it's like, well, there's natural consequences.
Right.
Like, if you don't practice, you're not going to class.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to earn that.
Right.
And you have to meet so many classes. If you don't, you're not allowed to test.
Yeah.
And when you're right on the edge of that black belt, when you're a black belt recommended, which is a red black, once you make that, you have a year to test for black belt. If you don't, they knock you back to red belt. And then you have to retest for black belt recommended so that you can test for black again. So it's like, there's real consequences. You're going to have to put the practice. But what that also means is we got to teach the value of, like, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Like, you can't just, the way you practice is the way you're going to perform. So if you're really wanting to prepare for your black belt, you need to practice these the right way. You can't just, try and rush through it. You need to be very intentional. So not only was it, you have to practice, but you have to practice with mom or dad watching.
Yeah.
And you have to do this, like, if you're going to do your form, you have to do your form 3 times with mom or dad watching, saying that was a good run through. But that means now our time's taken up to practice when she can practice.
Right.
Or she was working on her board breaks. So, there was one time my wife held pads for 2 hours straight that she was just practicing on those kicks and elbow strikes.
Yeah.
And it's like, that takes a lot of time investment on our part, but it is teaching a valuable lesson.
For sure. And I feel like the unintended consequence or outcome of that is quality time that you get to spend, that you don't even, like when you get to be, our age or even older, those times that you spent with your parents doing those things are the only things that you really look back on, and they were fun, and they were enjoyment. So again, I mean, I love that you've hit on that, because the times that I've said, all right, everyone, we're going outside to play basketball, because I see everybody's on their phone. We had, moments that we can't replicate and we'll never forget of just enjoying our time together.
Yeah.
Pushing ourselves to go do something outside of the comfort zone. Yeah. And I love that phrase that you said, perfect practice, because so many people will say practice makes perfect. No, that's not true. You got to do it the right way. I mean, practicing, something incorrectly is of no use.
You perform the way you practice. So if you practice crappy, you're going to perform crappy.
Yeah. And I love the other thing, natural consequences. And that's what I would say to any parent. Just try to stay out of those as much as possible. If they're natural consequences, when your son comes home and says, hey, I didn't make the basketball team, and you find out that they were goofing off or they weren't trying as hard, don't go down there and talk to the coach. Let those natural consequences work themselves out, right?
Yeah. And
there's a point where you have to step in. I've had kids, fail a few tests, and then you have to say, okay, you're grounded, and you're going to whatever. Natural consequences to me are like, you have to know where those lines is. Like, it's like, you have a kid that's always driving fast. It's like, well, the natural consequences, they get a speeding ticket. Maybe you take away their keys for a while, because there are some natural consequences that are really bad, right? But as much as possible, let those natural consequences play themselves out, as much as possible. If they'll say, I want to go to prom. Like, how much is it? It's like $150. It's like, all right, you need to raise that. Well, if on Friday night they don't have the money,
guess you're not going.
And so many times I feel like we go, ooh, I want to do that. And I'm like, but that's the thing. That was the natural consequence. And if we take that away, they're not learning a lesson. And I understand that it's hard. I understand that it's the hardest thing, but life is full of natural consequences. If you don't pay your mortgage, you lose your house. If you don't come into work, you lose your job. So when you take that away, you're taking away a lesson.
Yeah.
And I know there are some times, I see, it's like, hey, you have to pay for that, and they get close, and we help. I understand. But as much as possible, don't try to take away those natural consequences, because you're really doing a disservice.
Yeah.
As much as you love your kid, I'm telling you, you're really doing them a disservice when you step in between them and the coach. And there are times where I've seen in the sporting world, because all my kids have played sports, where they were correct. They did not get a fair shake. They didn't get the right amount of playing time. The coach didn't play them when they should, But again, that is a part of life as well.
Yeah.
You won't get a job that you were the best candidate for. So what do we do? Do we just say next year, hey, we're going to play a different sport maybe? Maybe we go do water polo instead of something else, but we're not quitting mid-season, right? Yeah. I can't let you do that. And I know this coach is not, and I'm not saying one that screams and yells and, is physically abusive. I'm not like that. Again, there's some points where you don't let consequences like that, hurt a child. But if it's just one of those things that's just like, it's just maybe not the most fair, that's a natural consequence of joining a team. And not everyone's going to be, in the limelight and have the stardom. And you're going to have to understand that it maybe is going to take a little bit longer to get what you want, to get to the place that you want.
A couple things there. Like, my parents had a saying growing up that I absolutely love now. Hated it back then, but life isn't fair. Get over it.
Yeah.
But there's another part there. Too many people play just the current game.
Yeah.
And there's really a meta game. If you're a selfish player, if you always hog the ball, your team's not going to want to play with you in further games. Like, you're not playing for the single game. You're playing for the season, for the success of the team. If the team's successful, you're successful. If you can have a rough game and still have a good season, you can have a tremendous game and have a terrible season. Like, you have to, especially like you think of board games, like when we play with our kids, to a degree, we have to let them win. They don't have the same experience. Maybe they haven't played the game as much, but if we win every game we play with them, they don't want to play.
Right.
So to some degree, you have to balance that out. Is it fair for me not to win when I could win? No, but life's not fair, and I'm not playing a single game. I'm playing the metagame.
Right. And I think that goes back to those natural consequences of like, when do you just go, you know, I'm a parent and I'm not going to just make everything, you know, a natural consequence. Like, everything ends up, you know, because I've seen that kind of thing. Like, well, I'll never let up because life doesn't. I'm like, that's kind of the point of parenting, is when to push and when to not. Because there comes a point when I'm playing chess with a 16-year-old that I'm done messing around, right? Like, you know what you're doing, and now we're gonna, you know, you're not gonna take it easy on me, and I'm not gonna take it easy on you, right? Like, you get to that spot. Yeah. I love that. And I mean, I love the part that life isn't fair, get over it, because it's just so true. And when you begin to be the victim, and this is something that like I am so passionate about. I'm not trying to go to people and say, you know, don't be the victim because I don't like you or because I'm mocking you. It's that is the thing that's stopping you from being successful. When you are on a team and you're like, this coach doesn't like me, or I'm not whatever, you're letting the external influences drive your narrative.
Yeah. You
are letting it affect you. Now, I know that there are times where it will. There are. And back to, you know, you're talking about Jocko and he has a book, Extreme Ownership, but it's like the sun is going to come up every day. That is something that we have to deal with. But you can wear sunglasses and you can get an umbrella. You do not have to let the elements just go, well, you know, this is it. And that's the thing that scares me the most, because I don't care if you're 10 or you're 90. If you think that everything is happening to you, you cannot get past that and be successful.
No.
It's going to own you. And when you can look at that and go, I'm on this team, I'm a really great shooter, you know, I work hard, I'm going to do my best with this time. I'm going to listen to the coach, but I'm not a fan, but I'm going to get a ton of experience out of this. I'm going to learn so much. And I've been in so many situations like that in my life where I worked for a person and I thought, they're not taking advantage of my talents. They're not whatever. But in this time I'm going to learn, I'm going to take every opportunity. So like, let's say you're in the Marine Corps and you do not like this unit, or you don't like this sergeant or Marine that's in charge of you. What can you learn not to do? You know, and then, you know, are you taking college credits during that time? Are you connecting with anyone in the community to learn something? Because you're going to be here. It's not fair. I get it, but it's life. And to me, that is the most important thing that anyone can learn. It's that you can be in charge of the situation even when you think it's not fair and it's dictating to you. Even if all you can say is that I'm owning my attitude about it. On the way to this podcast to talk to you today, the freeway was backed up, and what should have taken me 10 minutes took me an hour and a half. And you have to realize at some point, like, this is it. This is going to happen, and I'm going to have to adjust, and I'm going to have to own this.
Yeah.
And I cannot give up, and I cannot let this thing own me. And it's one of the hardest things because it's so hard to see that. It's like, look at what life gave me, and yet I've seen people born without legs that are state champion wrestlers. There's one out of Arizona State that was born without legs that's a state champion wrestler. How? I guess he just didn't let it define him,
I've seen that too. So I did Kyokushin karate for just a little bit when I was in Arizona and Aki Jiu-Jitsu. And my sensei, Hanchi Fred Buck, 9th degree black belt in those. One of his students is a 5th degree black belt, or was when I was there. I don't know what he is now. So high rank, if you make everything exactly on time, like never miss a test, anything, the fastest you can make a black belt in Kyokushin is like 7 years. So not insignificant, not fast track, anything like that. And he's a 5th degree. He's blind. He owns his own school and teaches. He's the drummer for their church. It's like, you can sit here and be a victim and say, I'm blind, I can't do this. There's no way I can do martial arts.
Right.
But I mean, there's people definitively proving you wrong.
Yeah.
And when you were doing jiu-jitsu with him, like, he would limit himself. This is the only move I'm allowed to tap you out with. You're free to do anything, but this is the only thing I'm allowed.
Yeah.
He'd still tap you out every time.
Right.
Like, restrictions, necessity is the mother of all invention, right? Like, in many times when we have those constraints, we perform better. So you can choose to let it stop you, or you can overcome it.
Right. And I mean, I think that's the focal point. And I mean, it's really everything I do behind So Good. It's not that I honestly care so much about being benevolent and making sure I'm giving back. Because I think there's individuals that are like, oh, I would feel guilty. I want to give back. It's that it's everything. The saying, it's more blessed to give than receive, means that the happiness comes in the taking control of the situation and owning it and getting through. And so for me, it's not like, I think there's so many times you're like, don't be the victim. They're like, well, that's easy for you to say because you don't have the things. And I'm like, no, the reason is because it's the only thing that's going to make you happy. It's the only thing that's keeping you right where you are.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to say that. I'm just like, I want to just grab you and hug you and say, the reason that it doesn't seem to work out, it's because you think that everything is just kind of happening to you, and you were just letting it. And like, well, what else can I be? Look at all these things. Like, I was born blind and I was this and I was that. I'm like, yes, those are all things that have come in your path. But your attitude and your ability to overcome is the key.
Yeah.
And it's the key to all of your happiness. And then we see people, like an Elon Musk that go out and do that. And then people are kind of frustrated. Like, oh, look at them with all their stuff. And I get it. There's billionaires. And it's like, all right, like, why don't we, there's this kind of idea like share it. And I'm like, yeah, but the value comes in working for it. And that's why, unfortunately, that social program ends up failing, because the work is where the value is.
Teach a man to fish, not give him fish.
Yeah. And so again, it's like, it's what I struggle with so much, because I see individuals that are like just frustrated. And it's like, what if you came with me and, I run this nonprofit So Good, and we go around and we give a free turkey to different families. And they're like, well, I just don't feel like I can do that, because I don't have anything to give, and I don't want to spend time doing something when I don't even feel like going outside, right? Like I've been laid off, or I've, all these bad things are happening to me. And I was like, a couple of things. One, you're going to see that your situation is actually better than most, if you can get out there. I go to St. Owls and St. Luke's, and I go to pediatric oncology, and I see parents with kids that are 4 and 5 with just a few weeks to live. You walk through there and you're like, oh, It could be much worse. And I don't want to do that either. Just go look at everyone and just be like, hey, you've got a bad situation. It could be worse. That kind of negates that you are in a bad situation. Yes, there's somebody that's worse, but your situation now is bad. Like if you're hungry, I'm not going to say, hey, there's people starving in Africa. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't help you.
Yeah.
But going and seeing it maybe will make you realize that one, there are other people that are struggling. Two, that it might be worse. But three, as you begin to give, as you begin to help someone, you begin to feel that thing that like, I can actually do this. I can help people. And you get out by helping. And so that's what I'm passionate about with So Good. That's what I'm passionate about is that when something bad happens, the idea that like, oh, I'm like a victim. And I think about 9/11 and people will say this phrase all the time. That was when America was great. And I think that was when America was great. 2 smoking towers. And you look back at that as like the height of American, popular things. And it's like, well, why? It's like, because we all got together and we were like doing stuff. And it's like, that's interesting. That's negative thing made you push to, make it great. And everyone wanted to do something and everyone wanted to help. And so what I've tried to do is without those bad things that's happened, go around and say, hey, just come with me. And I'm giving you an opportunity with So Good to work at the food bank. And then they come and they're like, oh, I had no idea. This entire infrastructure was here to help people. And now my situation doesn't look as bad. And I'm giving, which makes me feel good about myself, which makes me go, you know what? Maybe I will go tomorrow and look for a job. Maybe I will update my resume because I'm starting to feel good about myself. And so for me, all of this is wrapped up in the reason I feel like we have so much victimization is because we have it so good. And back in maybe 1776, you didn't have the fallback that we do, like social programs. So there wasn't a lot of victimhood because you just really did. That wasn't something we had. No. That wasn't something that was there. And now that we have those social programs, now that we have that, it's not doing anyone any good to be that victim. And I know that sounds calloused. It's like, again, I want to be so respectful. It's like if you're on those social programs, I understand that life can be tough. But if you don't take ownership of where you are and try to make things better, you end up staying there.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Jordan Peterson?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he mentioned something that I really liked, and I forget the exact wording, but it's something to the effect of there's no difference between thinking of yourself and being miserable. Like, right. So when you turn your focus out of you onto other people, so go to that food bank and help other people, you're turning the focus off of yourself.
Absolutely.
You're less miserable.
Right.
And I think that's something people don't realize. It's not even just that it's go see how much worse it could be for you. It's
right.
Take the focus off yourself entirely.
Right.
Go focus on someone else for a minute.
Absolutely.
Focus on your kids. Do something together.
And you hit on the absolute key. I mean, we talk about mental health and we say, I'm really struggling mentally. I have, anxiety and I have imposter syndrome. And I say, well, if you came to the food bank for 3 hours, I'm not saying that all of that will go away. But guess what? For 3 hours, you don't think about it. Mm-hmm. And at the end, you've had a reprieve. And they're like, that's interesting. And I'm like, I'm telling you, if nothing more, so like you said, it's like a two-pronged. One, well, it's like three. One, you are seeing that there are people, less fortunate than yourself. Let's just say that's just a small piece of it. Two, we know that there is more blessed to give than receive. So you're going to get a benefit inside from the work that you're doing. And 3, which is just a crazy byproduct, you take the focus off yourself so that your brain can have some peace for a while, right? It's like going for a walk. It's like doing something. It's like those activities that you do. You're like, oh, I go do something. Like I'll go hunting or fishing. And then I'm like, oh, I feel better. Well, yeah, because your brain will just, like work on that situation. Like you've lost your job, you're this, you're, imposter syndrome that we brought, the anxiety, like what am I going to pay for tomorrow? And people will say to me like, I owe this bill tomorrow. How is going to the food bank going to help that? And I'm like, you're right. Like, I know it doesn't make any sense. It goes against the logic. It's like, shouldn't I be focusing on me? Shouldn't I be sitting here thinking about my situation? But like, how are you going to think yourself out of this depression? How are you going to sit there and focus on that? And that somehow that focus is going to make it better. Don't you think maybe, even if we got back and the anxiety was just the same, at least it's not worse. Just taking that reprieve. And so again, that's something I've been very passionate about with doing stuff with So Good is it's almost like my sneak attack to help you. You don't even know it's happening. I say, hey, come to the food bank for 2 hours. And they're like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. I could use a break. But in their mind, it's like, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to be in the same spot. And it's probably going to be worse. And that's fine. Think that way. I don't care. Because when you come, all of a sudden, your brain's off. I've got to put this milk in here and I've got to put this sandwich in the bag. And I watch them. And it's like, you forgot to have anxiety. So I've already got you kind of in this space. Now, it's like going to the gym. You get this euphoria. You get this thing that's like, oh, hey, I feel pretty good. So at the end, you've done something with your hands. You've created something. It's like making your bed. You get this thing. So it's like a 3-pronged attack that I got you without even you knowing it.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Pareto distribution?
No.
So the Pareto distribution is used in a couple different things, but it's like one of the formulations is 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. But it's also used kind of in like growth curves. So it's very unlikely someone's going to write a book. But once you've written one book, you're way more likely to write another. Once you've written 2, you're way more likely to write another. And it's an increasing exponential curve. And that if you have bad things happen in your life and you respond in a bad way, you're more likely to respond in a bad way the next time. If you respond in a good way, you're more likely to respond in a good way more and more and more. So you're giving them that first quick win that makes it more likely for them to have that positive reaction in the future.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Dennis Prager?
Heard the name, but don't know him.
He ran a radio show in California for like 30 years. He's Jewish. One of his segments, he had a rabbi, a priest, a pastor, and I think someone else on. They'd have different discussions. And so kind of deep in philosophy, he's visited like 140 different countries, very well traveled, very well read. But he wrote a book that I'm particularly fond of called Happiness is a Serious Problem. And one of the claims he makes in it is happiness is a moral obligation because our moods affect those of those around us. And one of the prerequisites for happiness is gratefulness. So if you're sitting here, I'm a victim, you're not being grateful for anything. Like I see it almost like, okay, people here, find the silver linings and they're like, they get annoyed by that.
Yeah.
I almost view that as under that same umbrella of moral obligation. Like, am I going to make people around me miserable or am I going to make them happy? If I can find those silver linings, if I can find something to be grateful for, then I'm going to be happier. I've at least met that first prerequisite for happiness and I can spread that. So it's like you're building on that layer as well. My life might suck. I may not know how to pay this bill, but hey, I just went and helped someone.
Right.
Like I'm grateful. Maybe I didn't pay this bill, but I did have a meal to eat.
Right.
Find that gratefulness, find something to be happy about, spread that around.
Right. And the thing that's the most passionate for me, and I every opportunity I get to talk to somebody, I want to make this clear. So, I mean, this is like the crux of everything we're talking about. It's honestly because I know it to be true and I want to help you. And if we were just to sit here and say, okay, well, let's see, is it true? You look at like what an individual will say, this will make me happy. It's probably fame and money are up there, right? Like those are two things that we kind of associate with, if you're a struggling artist, it's like you look for the time that you're at a venue and you're strumming your guitar and you get found, right? And I think for the most part, it's this idea that like I will have money to be on like a private plane and I will have people will know me, and it's this idea. And I say, okay, well then let's take the top people in that category, the Elvis Presleys, the Marilyn Monroes. What happened then? Like, and it's almost like one of those things where it's like people say, well, but that won't happen to me. And I'm like, yeah, because you don't have it yet, right? You don't know the diminishing returns because right now the journey is what's making you passionate. But I've met people that are famous artists and they're like, you know what, my best times were being on the road and struggling and being that band. And I love this, but I wish I could have that anonymity and stuff. And I'm like, yeah. So if that's true, that those things do not make us happy, then we have to figure out what does. And I'm telling you, you will take that question again. Well, then who do you think are the happy people? And people will say, football coach, she's really happy, the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa. And I'm like, those are all people whose lives were all outward. Mm-hmm. Like, can you kind of see that? And so, but again, then you get into this place where it's like, well, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if like I want to be that. So again, I feel like we have to, at least this is, I feel like my mission is to kind of get you involved in something before you even know what's happening, right? Like I'm doing food bank nights, volunteer nights, working with veterans, working with teachers. And then people come and they go, oh man, I don't know what's going on, but I'm feeling it. It's like, well, I'm going against the entirety of what is being presented. And it's not bad what's being presented, but that's the world that we live in. I mean, you look at any commercial, it's like shampoo, so your hair looks good. So when you're on a date, and it's like, waving the hair and it's like the food. Nothing has ever presented us like, would you like to help? It's like, do you need this? And do you need it now? It's healthcare products, beauticians, it's all this for you. And I'm like, okay, but then why is anxiety and unhappiness at an all-time high? We look in the 17 and 18s and it's like, that's the era I want to go back to. But you would have had to, cut wood for months, just to get by. So here right now we have this kind of quandary. They had it harder, but they're happy. You have everything. And it's like we don't realize that's what we lost. And it's okay that we lost it. We lost it because of growth. It's like when we were living in communities where if you ran out of something, you would go next door. But we got spread out in suburbia and all those things. And so I feel like it's necessary for us that have found that to give opportunities to do that again. And so to me, that's so good in a nutshell. It's not only is it good, because I feel like there's a lot of philanthropy because of you're like, well, I have so much I want to give back. It's not just being in the grocery store and rounding up. It's when you go out and actually do it, I promise you'll begin to see three things. One, that you're much better off than you thought. Two, that you're having a blast. And then three, that your mind being taken off it you almost like it just kind of happened and you didn't even know it.
Yeah.
So,
and there's other side effects that people don't realize there too. Like everything now takes money, right?
Right.
So let's say you can't pay that bill. You can sit home and be miserable that you couldn't afford to watch the football game that's on because, you know, it's on 10 different networks now. Or you could be out helping someone. You forgot all about the football, didn't put out any money for it. Now you're saving money. Like when you're more focused on other people, everything gets better.
For sure.
And we're in too much of a consumeristic society. Like when we were kids, you used to just go hang out. Like I saw a post about this on Facebook the other day. We learned to just go hang out and have conversations. Kids nowadays don't do that. It's like, well, do you have this game console so we can play Fortnite?
Right.
Well, I guess Fortnite's on the computer or wherever. Like, do you have this? Have you spent the requisite money so we can hang out?
Right.
It's like, we'd just go play in the street or play in the woods.
But I would argue, though, that they're not as well off as we are when it comes to interactions. I've seen my kids go and meet other kids, and the ability to talk and connect is gone.
Yep.
So, you know, I feel bad. So instead of like looking at like, oh, look at these kids on their things, it's like, look what you're missing out on. But again, kind of what we talked about. Now it's my job to take them and do stuff. So if you look on any of the social media stuff, Facebook or Instagram for So Good, you'll see my kids there a lot. And there is a bit of it where in the beginning I was like, hey, we got to go do this. Because when I was a kid, my parents would make us go to the rest home every single Sunday and sing for the elderly people. My mom and dad would go to church, and then we had to spend 1 hour at the rest home. But now I get it. It was like they were teaching us to go out and do something for somebody, even when we kind of didn't want to. And so I've seen a huge difference in my kids when I say, hey, I know you love the consoles and stuff, but go out and come with me. They get to talk to other adults. They get to meet other people and those actual interactions. So again, I can sit here and talk about how this generation is different than mine and, you know, like look at the social media and like how everything, or I can go out there and do something. Now, I get texts and emails that people will say, just by the way, in a criticism way, there's not that many people that know about you, right? You're not really doing much. And I say, yeah, that's interesting, but I am taking my own kids and I'm taking a few of their friends, and what that means for the future, I don't know. I mean, there's a story I tell people, and I know it's probably not true, but it's one of those emotional stories about this kid that's on the beach, and there's a bunch of sea animals like starfishes and stuff, and the tide's gone out, and so he starts throwing them back in the water, and his grandpa comes up and says, "There's hundreds and thousands of these animals. By the time the sun actually hits a certain point, they'll be stuck and they won't be made back to the beach. It doesn't matter." And he throws one back, and as he throws it, he says, "It mattered to that one." And I love that concept. And everyone I talk to, and they're like, "I don't know." And I'm like, look, me and you are meeting for a reason. It matters. You matter. And they're like, "No, I don't. I've lost my job and whatever." I'm like, yeah, but because you don't realize, like, again, you matter to us. And when you finally realize that, like, oh, hey, like, I'm in a bad situation, but like I have a brother or a sister or someone that, when you realize you actually matter, and not in a commercialism, like you matter, like let's worry about you. It's like, no, you could be part of something, right? Well, imagine you're on a team and there's only 4 players, and they're like, we're about to forfeit because we don't have a 5th. And then there's you. Like, you matter because we need you, right? And I think there's so much of that, like, yeah, but like, I don't have anything to give, or I'm down myself. And so what I've been trying to do is like, more like, when you get engaged, you'll realize that you actually are way more than you think. And then you add in all the concepts we talked about. Now, you take like a Marine Corps or a Army Rangers that you can go farther than you think. Now, all of a sudden, you went from thinking, I can't do anything, to going beyond what you thought you could do at all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you think about that. Like, that to me is the passion. That once you turn it around, if you're blind or if you know, what, all those types of things, now you're like, wait a second. I've gone beyond what I thought I could, and I'm not done. Yeah. But you kind of have to start plugging into that, because if you don't ever start, you know. And so my passion was so good has been to get people involved in stuff knowing that it's best for them. You know, it's like what our parents did with whatever giving back. It letting us see, like my parents would maybe pick a family for Christmas and we would go take presents and we would see that interaction and we would be like, this is way cooler than us ever getting anything. And I remember that. And my kids even say that now. The times they gave gifts, they were like, there was no Christmas present I ever got that topped that.
Yeah.
But it's difficult because we are inherently, and this is something that another right-hand turn that could go for hours, I think we're inherently selfish. I mean, you look, my mom runs a daycare. You do not have to teach it. I have never had to sit down with 2 3-year-olds and say, hey, you both want this cookie. Go after it. We are inherently selfish. So if you think inherently selfish, and then you kind of follow that train, you're going to be like, what is in it for me? And yet that's the source of the unhappiness, you know? Well, so that's what I'm trying to break, is like, I know you're selfish, and I know you come by this completely natural, but if you could take an hour and take your mind off of it, you'll realize that is what's keeping you where you are.
Yeah. I would extend that a little bit with another concept from Jordan Peterson. When people say they're being selfish, we don't realize that we're not just one person. There was me now, there was me 5 minutes ago, there's me 10 minutes in the future, in a year, in 20 years. Those are all slight variations of me. They're not the exact same person. Like, I'm not the same person I was when I was right. 5. I'm not going to be the same person I am now when I'm 50. Like, but when you say you're being selfish in just that momentary version of yourself. So going out and helping others is actually training you to take care of yourself too, because there's no difference than looking at and helping others and looking at all possible versions of yourself and helping yourself out. Like, right. You have to be kind and considerate to yourself too, across future variations of yourself.
Yeah. And that's an interesting concept that, like, honestly, and I mean, like, we teach our kids to share and they just look at you like, what? And I'm like, you know, this concept is actually helping you, mm-hmm. right? Helping the other person does help you.
Yeah.
But it's a hard thing. It's like, wait a second, I'm going to get if I give, you know? And it is.
There's an interesting angle to this that I liked. So in a lot of ways, I wish I had taken more anthropology in school. My bachelor's is actually in math, but I really enjoyed anthropology and like cultural psychology. One of the things in anthropology, one of the reasons we give gifts, like even the concept of a dowry way back, was indebtedness to each other. If I give you a birthday present, now you're in debt to equalize or make fair to give me a birthday present. What has that done? That's brought us together and helped us form relationship. And now we're thinking of each other. Right. Like, it may be like, well, I don't want to go spend money and give you something. You know, that could be that selfish version. Like, why would I give you something? But it's like, no, in the act of giving, now there's a social indebtedness that actually helps form the relationship and bring it up together. That's one of the reasons for giving gifts to going to parties. But I liked an interesting twist on that in Lord of the Rings, you know, or The Hobbit, where on your birthday, instead of receiving presents, you give presents to everyone who attended. Like, you can make different variations, but it's actually a studied anthropological principle that we give gifts serves as kind of a glue that brings us together and builds that connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You can apply that to sharing the toy, or if like there's another concept. Let's say we don't have a refrigerator. Let's say we're on Survivor or something, and there's no other food. We go hunt. I bring down, let's say, a woolly mammoth. So there's a massive amount of meat. I can never eat through it for me and even my family before it goes bad. What is the best investment of that food? Give it away.
Right.
Like, even if you could find a way to refrigerate it and store it, the best store for that food is to give it away. Because then if you're ever in need, guess what? They're all going to remember that, and they're going to take care of you.
Yeah.
Like, store up your wealth in others.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That's good.
But I did want to go back. We've talked a little bit about So Good, but I wanted to go back and what inspired you? I saw a little bit on another clip that it kind of came out of remembering your dad. And so I was curious, how did So Good come about?
Yeah, and I feel like I accidentally found this. I had all the same selfish tendencies of anyone. But I kind of found it through, suffering and pain and bad things that happen. And I think some of it was subconscious, right? And so people have always asked me, like, how did So Good start? There was a TV show that I watched this one time called My Name is Earl. I don't know if you've ever seen it. But the concept is this guy's bad. He's just a bad dude. He just grew up. And he's not like super bad, but, he breaks into houses and he's just always been kind of a lowlife. And he ends up winning the lottery. But when he wins the lottery, he gets hit by a car. Anyways, he has this idea that life is just karma and all these bad things are happening to him because he's done all these things. So he makes a list and it's like 500 things. It's 2 pieces of paper. And then he begins to like do them one at a time. And his life just keeps getting better and better and better. And so he goes down and he stole, something from someone and he just starts checking them off. And it becomes his whole life. His whole life is going back and rectifying all these things. And his life just keeps getting better and better. And so I think stuff like that kind of stuck in my brain, The other big one for me was a movie that came out long time ago, but very impactful for me called It's a Wonderful Life. And in It's a Wonderful Life, story of a guy who's just a regular banker. He just lives in the town and he doesn't know that he's doing anything great. There's another big bank and he's trying to keep people away from them. And, he's just barely making ends meet and him and his wife are just working hard. And then he decides, that his life is better if he didn't exist. And then, he gets to see his life without it. And then he gets It's a Wonderful Life. So I would say those, there are some things beyond just my dad that made me realize that we really don't know the amount of, influence we have on other people when we do things that are positive. But the big thing for me, for sure, was that in 2015, my dad passed away from a brain tumor. It's been over 10 years. And it definitely resets you because, you're in your 30s. My dad had a great 401k, great job. And then all of a sudden he's gone. And then you realize like none of that stuff really mattered. And to your point, everyone at the funeral was like, man, I'd give the shirt off my back to your dad. There was this one time. And you realize the wealth was all of that. I mean, he could have stopped at any point and probably never worked again and just went around and asked people because he had put so much time and effort into everyone else. And he was just loved and revered. And, they talked about him. And even when I meet people and they're like, oh, you're so-and-so's son, oh man, your dad. So I realized that the value of the life was like what you did for others, right? Like there was no intrinsic value in our own self. I don't care. I mean, I really don't believe it. I mean, you look at like a famous Elvis Presley or whatever, but those things kind of go away and you just become a tombstone and a name. Like what are you doing to help others? That's the only thing that actually lasts at all. I mean, you say you can't take it with you. Well, then what can you take with you? Well, you can take the way you made people feel both ways, both bad and good. Mm-hmm. Like your legacy is only as long as people say your name. You die twice, once when you actually die and once when somebody says your name for the last time. So, I mean, it obviously changes your life. So that, and then 2 years later, I was working in IT. October the 1st, 2017, I went out to Vegas, staying at Mandalay Bay Hotel, and there was a concert across the street, and a buddy of mine was, I really wanted to go to the concert, and he was like, I don't really like country music. So he was like, let's go eat before. So we went and ate before we went, and that saved our life. I mean, on our way back, a gunman broke out a window on a high floor in the Mandalay and started shooting down, shot over 300 people, killed 60 people, I believe. I think 58 that night, and then 2 or 3 people died later. But you want to know, like, the true value of life. There's just nothing that I would never want anyone else to go through this, but just imagine thousands of people on their phone watching their favorite country artist singing and drinking a drink and stuff, and all of a sudden shots rang out and people left their wallet and their keys and their everything. Nothing mattered. Preservation of life. And to be there a few minutes after that happened and to hear a field of phones ringing, knowing people are looking to check in on someone, and knowing a lot of those phones, no one's ever going to hear that one again. And you, 5 minutes before that, thought life was about disconcert and stuff. And I don't think we need to live in fear that as we're going down, I don't want a terroristic type of community where we're looking over our shoulder and just, so grateful for every little thing. But I mean, when you see that and you're around it, that just shatters all that you've ever known. And you see unimaginable loss. I talked to kids that night that lost both of their parents. I talked to husbands that lost their wives that lost their husbands, people that were close to them in an absolute instant. And they were like just hanging on those last moments. I never heard anyone say, well, my husband was a famous physician. Like, none of it mattered. It was like these last moments. And then what I saw that really changed my life is I watched people from all walks of life do unimaginable kind deeds. I saw guys with just driving down Las Vegas Boulevard and would stop and would say, do you need to go to the hospital? And there would be a person that, had made it out and maybe shot, but not in a really, they were going to be okay, but they were, clipped in the knee or something. And people would say, just jump in my car. Who does that? You don't do that for people. I mean, here was these people just going, come to my house, just humanity stepped in a way that I was like, I've never seen anything like this. Now, you mentioned the word silver lining. It was just an absolute tragedy. There's just no other way around it. To this day, no one knows why it happened. The person didn't have accomplices. They never really had any demands. They just shot for a while. They ended up taking their own life. It was a tragedy in itself. But there's no way that you can do that and not come away with a really deep sense of what matters. You can never go back. And I don't want to put that on anyone. There are people that just, go to the store and they never went through what I went through. They never had, some maybe military stuff that happened and then, civilian stuff that happened, and that PTSD that kind of goes together of being in both situations and seeing people lose their lives. And this one makes even less sense because there's no training. These aren't people that know that they're in those situations, where I feel like in the military, at least hey, this thing could happen, but you're young, and those are traumatic as well. But being in that, the hardest part for me was when I came home and I would just see somebody, flip someone off and honk because they didn't go through a red light. It went green. And I was like, well, hold on a second. Let's all be nice. It was like a world of like glasses. I just wanted to hug you, and like, now I not see you again, and even helping people out that night. I had been there all day on Sunday and ridden in an elevator up and down with people that night I know, well, there's a very good chance that I was on an elevator or I came in contact with somebody and that was their last day on the earth. But I was too busy to say, hey, that's a really nice outfit. That looks great. Like, I just was caught up in the minutia of life. And when that all came crashing down, when I came back to Idaho, it was really difficult for me because I really wanted to be like, hey, like September 11th type thing, the humanity and the love, and don't be mean. Where it's only, you're only here for 60, 70 years, it's so fragile. And so I began to go do things to help because I didn't want to think about what I saw. And so I would go to the food bank for 2 hours. I would go to the VA home. I would go take coffee to hospitals. I would go take coffee to teachers because mine was like, I can't sit here and think about this anymore. But what happened is I found my own way out. And so now the reason I'm passionate about this and I say this stuff is like, I was there. I was right there in those things of PTSD and depression and anxiety. I would go to dinner with my wife and I would sit in the restaurant and she would be talking and I would just be looking at every single person thinking of who it's going to be, and not enjoying it and just trying to figure out who the person was going to be that it would come from. That was my life. And so for me, I just began to do stuff that was good because I went back to what my parents actually instilled in me, which was going to the food bank, going to help veterans, going to help people less fortunate, going to the rest home. And so I just literally like went back to childlike things that I grew up with, not looking to help people. I want to be completely honest. Like, I was far worse mentally than anyone I was helping. I wasn't going to be philanthropic. I wasn't going for anything other than to get my mind off of something. But you just said the side effects. As I began to do that, I found people in Idaho that had been there and lost someone at the Vegas shooting. I found people who lost someone in a different way. Pediatric oncology, Make-A-Wish, Ronald McDonald House, the VA home, the VA hospital. And then all of a sudden it was like I couldn't go back. I could never see it the same way. And I don't ever want to put that on anyone. I hope that no one ever, ever, ever experiences any of that. I hope that your kids don't have cancer, that your wife and you never break up, that none of that happens. But for me, if I don't do something to help, then all those people lost their lives for nothing. If I don't go out, then it's like, I think, I'd like to think, and this is just me, and I think I'm allowed to, but I can imagine that if I was to talk to any of those people that lost their lives that day, they would be frustrated at me or at us if we didn't just go out and do something because they didn't get to do that, right? Like the tragic end of whatever. It's like, well, how can you come to terms with that? How can you make it better? You can't. But we can then go and live life to the fullest, which is helping others. And I'm not saying that because I read it in a book. I'm not saying that because my dad told me. I'm saying that because I stood in a field where there were 58 white sheets, and I realized only what's done for others matters. And I don't know. I mean, if people say, I don't know if I believe that, I wouldn't berate you. I wouldn't try to change your mind. But it changed my life, and I've seen that it's changed other people's lives, and it is the basis of So Good. I have seen we all have incredible acts of kindness and helpfulness in times of need, but not so much when things are good. But I would argue that the amount of happiness is also at an all-time low. So when you say, oh, I watch CNN or I watch Fox News, we're all angry at each other, I'm like, yes, but what are we doing for each other as well? And they're like, I wish it could go back to 2001. Well, that was a terrible time.
Yeah.
That was a time when there were thousands of kids and people unaccounted for. You really don't want that. What you need is just to slowly pivot and take the focus off yourself ever so slightly. And there's another phrase that I like: don't light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Don't go the other way. Don't go, and just sell your house and, just be all out. There's a balance. You need to take care of your kids and your family, and, there's a balance there where even myself, like, I give as much as I can. I try to give till it hurts. I don't want to just go give in excess. But there are times where I'm like, my kids and I are going to, a Boise State basketball game, and we're not going to invite anyone, and we're going to enjoy our time. So fill your own battery, recharge your batteries, But I, without a doubt, know that if you want that post September 12th, October 2nd of 2017, that tragedy is what shook you out of your inward view. And I've talked to people in Vegas since, and they say, oh man, we started to this and we started to that, and we, Vegas strong. And then, the hockey team did really well, and everyone kind of rallied around that. And they're like, it gave us a purpose. And for me, mankind has been my purpose. And it's caused the side effect of a lot of joy, true happiness. And when I find myself going, oh man, I can't believe this is happening to me, I go, oop, I'm lacking in focus, in outward focus. And so I think one of the hardest things to do is do that without those real negative, kind of shake your whole foundation. And so for me, I've taken something, a couple of tragedies, my dad passing away from a brain tumor, a mass shooting in Vegas, and said, okay, what could I do to capture this essence of we're good, we just need opportunities? And so for me, I'm just a person who constantly looks for opportunities and then invites other people to be a part of that.
I think there's a really important part there that ties back to earlier in the conversation, in that, like you said, our legacy, as soon as you die, you're gone. Like it wouldn't matter if I became the richest person in the world, outstripped Elon Musk. Like, there's no legacy in that. It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. I made the decision a long time ago, or came to the conclusion, that there's no impact I can have on this world that is greater than the impact I can have on others. They can collectively, it doesn't matter if it's only one person I've had an effect on, or if it's 20, whatever it is, they can have more impact on the world than I can ever do single-handedly. So it's like, you see this ripple effect. Your dad passed on and your mom passed on these values of helping others. And even if it stopped just with you, it helped you, but it's not going to help just you. Like,
Right.
People may look at you and say, well, maybe a lot of people don't know so good, but it's like, you don't see that ripple effect.
Right.
The effect your parents had on you that now you're having, even if it's only on your kids,
Right.
the impact that your kids are going to have on others, like that legacy spreads and ripples out.
Right. And that's honestly one of my favorite things, to just know that, like, I don't know who it is, you know. We've done things where I've never, gotten back with a person. I don't know. But it is something that I'm passionate about, and fortunately, I have gotten to see it a few times in my kids. One of my sons, my son Cooper, he wrestles, and they went on this wrestling trip to Montana, and he was like, "Hey, can I have some money for food?" And I think it was like $50, and I'm like, "Yeah, that should cover you for 3 or 4 days. You a road trip up to Montana in a bus, and you wrestle for a few days and play." I think they played football too, and then a couple days back, and he came back and he had no money, and I was like, "Really? You just blew it all?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, like we stopped at gas stations along the way." So I ran into one of the coaches, and he was like, "Hey, I want to tell you something. Your son did not run out of money. What happened is we would stop at these gas stations and kids would go in and get food, but some of the kids wouldn't get off. They'd be like, 'No, I'm fine.' And about the second time, your son realized that they weren't getting off because they didn't have any money and they didn't want to go into the store. And he saw that, and he just was like, 'Hey, I got an extra $5. And he blew it all doing that. And to me, I was like, oh, if all that I ever did was helped you realize that was it. There was all these kids on the bus, and they were all good kids, and I'm sure they came from good homes, but they all were looking out, just outward view. But someone was like, hey, something's going on in here. I'm aware that this something, why are the same 4 or 5 people just going, no, I'm good, totally good. And then realized I can share. And then you go, you're going to be a successful kid. You got it. You figured it out.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go. If you can see that, when you can see that, you have this legacy. And so, coaches will be like, oh man, I love that kid. And I'm like, you created this thing. That kid went back and told his mom about this situation where he went, and she was probably nervous to let him go. And yet you were focused enough on other people, just slightly. And I'm not saying you got to turn your whole head around, but what it takes is just a teeny little pivot. And so your parents can help you. Obviously, situations help with me. But to me, what helps me is a morning recognition of looking for it. And when I do that, man, I see it everywhere. I fly a lot. You don't know how many times I've seen an older person struggling to check in. They're looking at their passport and their thing and Southwest, and I look for it. And so then I see it. But if you're like, I'm late, look at this long line, what's the stock market doing? You won't see it. And so my mission has been, I kind of got bonked on the head, and was like, hey, here you go. Here's a really bad thing. But the silver lining is that like, I'm not waiting anymore for bad things to happen to find people that I could interact with,
Yeah. They're around us more than we know. There's no shortage of people that even just need someone to talk to.
For sure.
Like, going back to your parents taking you into those homes, like maybe you were singing, but maybe some of those people also just need someone to talk to for a minute.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people go in and into like an assisted living home. And I mean, everybody's busy. Everybody has busy lives, but they get in there and all of a sudden they may not have family visiting. They may be lonely. And it's like 5 minutes of your time.
Right.
Go in and talk to them for 5 minutes and you will make their entire week, month, year. Like it takes next to no effort for huge outcomes.
Right. And again, I mean, the thing is that like, if you haven't done it, you don't know it. So I've got to kind of help you, I've got to help people get to that spot. And they're like, hey, you know what? You're right. I really didn't want to go do this thing, but I feel, better about it now, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know you have upcoming events. What kind of things do you do with So Good?
So we work at the food bank once a month. That's just kind of our steady thing. Anyone can come. At sogood.org is the website. Then there's like anyone has, there's an About Us, there's merchandise. We sell all the So Good stuff very cheap. I think, a couple bucks more than we actually pay for the materials. And for me, I don't want to sell anything because I'm like, oh, I want to make money. It's just that I want someone to see that and go, So Good. What is So Good? And you're like, everything is so good. It really is, and that's just like a talking point. So for me, the stuff is to get out there because it really is so good. I know that to be true. It's much better than you think. And I know people go through hard times and I don't want to marginalize that. But if you can rise above that, you can look outward. We have it very good. It's so good. And it is also a thing that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you go out and you're like, today is going to be good and I'm going to make it good and I'm going to think good, you can trick yourself almost into seeing all the good, and vice versa. So anyways, on the website, we have a calendar and it has all of our stuff. So what I like to do is I look to go after, easy. I mean, like in the business world, we call it low-hanging fruit, something that no one's going to argue about. It's like older veterans in the VA home and in the VA hospital. We have a VA home in Boise. There's a bunch of vets there. Most of them, they don't have family and they don't have resources. And so they live full-time at a rest home on the VA campus called the Boise Veterans Home. That's easy. Like, I mean, a veteran, he fought in Vietnam. Now he's there and he just wants someone to play, like Thursday, we'll go there and we'll do turkey bowling. So it's like a bowling ball, same size as a bowling ball, but it's rubber. And then we set up some pins. They're, they look like pins, but they're hollow inside plastic. And then we put some turkey, felt and stuff, make them look like turkey, and we knock them down. These guys are in wheelchairs and they absolutely love it, right? Turkey bowling. So stuff like that gets put on there. So I like to work with 3 or 4 main groups. So I like to do stuff with veterans because I was a veteran, but I love the idea that they gave something, we're going to give back. A lot with teachers, free coffee. So we do a lot of free coffee for teachers by hiring local coffee trucks. I kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I help local coffee trucks get their name out there. And then I support teachers by doing free coffee. So it's easy because let's just say, Les Schwab says, hey, we want to help out in the community. We don't know how. I'm like, give me $500. I'll do 2 schools, $250 each. I'll hire the trucks. We'll give it to the trucks. We'll put your name on it. And then Les Schwab helps out teachers. So I'm helping the businesses help teachers but also helping local trucks, and I don't have to be there. They know how to do it. They do events all the time. They don't need me there.
Yeah.
But what I can use people for is on a cold day, they say, hey, you know, we have about 20% of our teachers that can't come out. Well, now me and you can run in and take the coffees in. We get to meet the teachers. We get to see the inside. And a lot of times people will come back and go, man, I had no idea public school was like that. I thought it was just easy. I had no idea that it was overcrowded. I had no idea all this stuff exists. So that's the other byproduct. And so we do that. The easy button is like law enforcement and first responders. So we do a lot of firefighters and police. Same thing, just free coffee, free donuts, free something, free crepes, just a thank you. And then that kind of bled into healthcare during COVID because there were so many people doing 80, 100 hours. And I was like, ooh, I know that healthcare kind of gets a bad name because it's expensive and it's like there's all these things, but it's like the nursing staff and those just day-to-day workers, I still want to say thank you to them and anyone in that industry. So I've been, every time I fly now, I've been trying to get something to say thank you to a TSA person. As I go through, here's a chocolate bar. Hey, thank you for doing your TSA. Especially, during that time that they weren't getting paid. I get on the plane, maybe I have 2 candy bars, one for the pilot and one for the steward person, So stuff like that. But the main ones, like I said, that we do is the Idaho Food Bank, the veterans and veterans affairs, veterans homes, and just veteran-related services. All school districts and all schools in Idaho, I don't care if it's public, private, whatever, just helping school teachers. Just feel the love. Just thank you for what you're doing. And then first responders / healthcare workers. And so on the website, you'll see, next week we're doing a coffee truck in Wilder or coffee truck in Marsing, a coffee truck. And so then you can click on there and say, I'd like to volunteer and run coffee, or I would like to buy 2 coffees. They're, $5 each. And so I'd like to sponsor 2 teachers. So we have a way, we have both Venmo and PayPal, and we're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 with the EIN number. So all of our programs, like if you're like, I want to buy a coffee for a cop, or I want a coffee for a veteran, or I'd like to buy we do a lot of sporting events for veterans. So we take a lot of, that's another thing. These veterans are like, hey, we would love to go to a Steelheads game. Well, I got to get the tickets and take them to a Steelheads game. But a lot of times we can just go to, Nampa Christian and watch Nampa Christian play football. So what I would love is Nampa Christian to reach out and say, hey, so good. We're going to set aside on our bench 3 spots that are always reserved for veterans. You tell them they can come. I don't know how much it is to go to a game, but maybe it's $8, but we're going to pay for that. And we're going to say their name before the game starts. So just before we say the national anthem, we have 3 veterans here tonight. Their names are, 3 things. So that's what we do. And so on the website, you can find all of the calendar type stuff. I'm on the board of Idaho Veterans Network. So the one big thing we do this time of year is called Idaho Veterans Wreaths. We have about 7,000 graves up at the Dry Creek Cemetery in Boise that are all veterans. The white markers that you would see at Arlington and those kinds of things. So the last couple of years, we broke away from wreaths across America, which we're using real wreaths, real Christmas wreaths made from real trees. And we have reusable ones now. So we take a donation for every one of those wreaths. They usually sell out, all 7,000. And then December the 13th at 1 o'clock, we'll put them out on all the graves. So unless there's a reason we don't, like maybe a person just is a religious exemption and they're like, I don't want one. The family is like, they wouldn't have wanted one of those. I'd like to think that the holiday wreath is for all. It's just like a circle of life. It's many different holiday traditions. But if you feel like, oh, that's Christmas and we don't celebrate that, that's fine. We won't put it on that marker. But every single dollar that's raised goes back to veterans. Every single dollar. So I'm really proud of that. We've probably raised, a couple $100,000 in the last couple of years for veterans.
Nice.
So where does that go? If you are a veteran in Idaho, I don't care if you all the way up and, near Canada or all the way at the bottom, east, west, doesn't matter. If you're a veteran and, you have your DD-214 and you say, hey, I have a wheelchair and I need a ramp built. I need my bathroom to be turned into ADA compliant. I'm behind on my rent. I need a gas card. I need a suit so I can go to an interview. We'll pay for any of that kind of stuff. And so what's been really nice with Wreaths Across America that has now become Idaho Veterans Wreaths is we own the wreaths. We have the Connex boxes that we store the wreaths every year. The wreaths get a donation. Volunteers make sure the wreaths look nice. They put them on the graves. And then all the money we make from that goes directly to veterans.
Nice.
And I'm also on the board of the West Ada Foundation, which is a foundation that raises money so that teachers that need things for their classroom can put in for grants. So they may have students that, came here to America from another country and they don't have access to as much money. Maybe they need an instrument. And so we'll buy that for them, buy that for that student. So that's another one that raises hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I have my own nonprofit, but then I'm on the board of the Idaho Veterans Network, which is the owner of the Idaho Veterans Wreaths. That's how we raise money for veterans. And then on the board of the West Ada Foundation. So very connected to teachers and veterans. But if anyone wanted to get involved with either of those organizations or any organization, on the sogood.org, we have 3 or 4 tabs. One is, obviously just kind of about us. One is how to volunteer. One is the merchandise, like buying anything that you want. And then another one is calendar. And then we have an option to just literally send us a message like, I need help. I'm struggling with anxiety. How do I receive benefits from So Good? What could be done? I mean, I've given out gas cards. We've bought, turkeys for families that need. I've worked with health and welfare to find kids this year that are in the system, they call it, that are bouncing around from house to house. What could they want for Christmas? So, we definitely have on our website a way to contact us, a way to get involved, or to receive support if needed.
That's awesome. I thought of something with all that. In the American Taekwondo Association, I can't speak for other ones, but my familiarity with the ATA, kids can go into the leadership program and they earn like SWAT stars. And there's different things they have to do to earn those in order to progress to like Delta. But one of those SWAT stars is actually like 6 hours of volunteer time. And so that might be an easy way to partner with people that are looking for that discipline, also looking to learn leadership and looking to learn to help people and do that volunteer.
Right.
You might have a ton of at least, and there may be other martial arts and lots of other places. I'm just familiar with the Taekwondo that you may have a lot of those students and families that would be very interested in helping volunteer in different ways.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I've been trying to do, is just to be a focal point. So if somebody's like, hey, I'd like to volunteer now, we only have a few options a month. So the other one I've been pointing at people, and I don't point people at many other ones, but there's a website called justserve.org. Now it was created by the LDS Church, but it's not the LDS Church. So, I mean, people will see it and be like, oh, what is this religious affiliated? And I'm like, no, a lot of what the LDS Church does is help people. And I'm not affiliated with the LDS Church. I didn't grow up LDS, but I understand that they are looking, obviously, that that congregation, that group, want to help. There's a lot of, it's kind of built into the way they grow up and kind of what they believe is helping. So they started a website called Just Serve, and it's justserve.org. But what's nice about Just Serve is my website is on there. Idaho Veterans Network is on there. So you can actually go on there and you can say, I would like to play the piano. And it's like, this is 7 ways. We have, a band that's starting up and they need a piano player. We also have, a party and they need somebody to play the piano in the background, or they need somebody, whatever, we need this. And so it's really nice is on Just Serve. It's a collection of everyone in the Treasure Valley. And there's Just Serve branches. There's like Just Serve Boise, Just Serve Meridian, Just Serve whatever. But you put in your zip code and it'll take you to the right one. But what's nice about it is literally it'll just be like any sort of thing. You'd be like, there's a rest home and they really would love to pet a dog. And you're like, well, I've got a dog and we're not doing anything. We live right near there. We'll walk down there. And you obviously contact them and make sure the dog is good and not going to bite anyone and stuff like that. But there's so many opportunities. And so I really like to plug that one because, if we're talking about this whole kind of circle is that the volunteer helps you, I definitely want to leave you with an option to do so. So Good is one of them, and we do a lot. But I mean, I'll get ones that say, hey, we're the Micron group and we want to help. And I'm like, there's like 250 of you. I don't know if I have a project like that. But I do know of Just Serve, and they've found avenues on that to be like, oh, this organization, like, there'll be like these 5Ks that people will do. Big 5Ks. I think there's a turkey trot coming up on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
They need people to stand there and, hey, turn right here. And so you can go on to those Just Serve and click, and it'll be like, hey, all we need you to do is just help people sign up, put water into glasses. So there are a lot out there. And I think people get overwhelmed sometimes because they're like, I don't know where to start. So sogood.org or justserve.org. I guarantee you can find some way to get involved.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We struggled looking for things that our daughter could volunteer in, partially because a lot of things had an age requirement. Like you've got to be above a certain age. And we ended up volunteering with our church. One of the things they had is I brought her on the show. Rebecca Grindstaff started Care House Learning Center to help with childcare for people that needed help with that. And so one of the volunteer things is, we're a nonprofit, so come in and help us clean the toys.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, we can go in and our daughter can help clean toys and wipe down tables. And, you think, how is cleaning something going to help? But it's like all of that helps. I like that concept of anything, whether you have a dog or piano playing skills. There are ways to plug your skills, whatever they are.
Absolutely. And I'll even tell people like beyond that, like they'll say, well, I don't know. I just kind of want to go do something by myself. I just want to help. And I'm like, well, have you ever walked down the green belt? And they're like, well, I'd love to. And I'm like, did you see any trash? And they're like, here and there. I'm like, what if you just got a pointy stick and you took a section? You don't have to wait for me. You don't have to look at Just Serve. You don't have to look at So Good. But I guarantee you could find any street, any park, any high school that you could do something, And so that's been kind of my thing is like, all right, if nothing makes sense to you, what about in your world that you live in, like just in your bubble, right? Like what if you brought in cookies to the workplace and you left a note that said, I hope you have a great day. And they'll be like, I don't know. I'm like, it's just those, outward things,
There's probably people.
And once you begin to do that, you'll be like, oh, I'm a bell ringer for the Salvation Army. And then I found Toys for Tots. And then as you begin to do it, that whole community just becomes very apparent, and you find there's a lot. There's a lot. There is a lot, right? I mean, there's so much. I mean, you're looking just like, let's just say you took the prison system and you're like, what could I do there? And they would be like, oh, well, we have, people, we need people to help people read. We have these groups of individuals that, want to learn. And it's like, there's no one there. And you're like, oh, that could be your thing. Like your whole life could just be volunteering at the prison, baking or welding or some class, and so like it just kind of takes, again, just a little twist of an outward view. Yeah. But Just Serve and So Good will definitely get you started. But if you can't find anything, what I say is just kind of then look for it, just when you're on the freeway, let somebody in, begin to just go, am I really, stopping, go out to I tell people this, go to Walmart and take all the carts and go, put them back where they were, because there's going to be a bunch all over the place. Yeah. That's something. You're like, well, that guy gets paid to do it. Yeah, I know. But like, if you're looking for something, you can find it. I guess that's my message. It's out there.
And it's probably a lot closer than you think. It could be someone right next door.
Exactly.
Maybe they just hurt their foot and can't mow their yard.
Right.
Or maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck and they need a couple fence boards replaced.
Right.
It could be something that would take you 5 minutes and no money, or 5 minutes and a couple bucks, and
it's just getting
whatever.
Started. It's just getting started.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel like I've been able to help, is that like I found those places kind of on my own and then created something kind of accidentally. We never meant to create So Good. No, it was never an idea in my head like, oh, I'm going to have this nonprofit called So Good. It's going to be a charity. It's kind of turned into our lives. And I would say for the most part, we all do. We all do. I've seen it so many times. I've seen so many times, I'll be in an airplane and an older lady's trying to get her bag up, and I'll see someone reach up and grab, and I'm like, you're all doing stuff that's so good. You just don't know it, And so it's kind of fostering that, and getting a few individuals to kind of turn that way. And like as you said, as that grows, people see it, and it becomes people become more aware of it, and even if we're only helping one person, we're fine with that.
Yeah, it ripples on. I can tell you, like, our youngest child, when we were pregnant, my wife was on bed rest for like 2.5 months in labor, like full contractions for 2.5 months on meds, trying to stop it, help long. So she was either in bed or she was on the couch. That was it. I mean, very, very, very limited. And I'm not much of a cook. I mean, I can look in the fridge and pantry and put random things together and it seems to turn out. But to follow a recipe, I'm not the greatest at it. And our church just put together a food chain. Here, let us bring you meals. And I don't remember if it was twice a week. And then, like, I can't tell you how grateful we were for that. It may seem like just taking a meal to someone means nothing. It's like they're not struggling necessarily financially, like they couldn't afford a meal. But the amount of help that was for us in taking off the stress, in like me being able to focus on taking care of my wife and the kids and not have to worry about doing something that, I'm not all that great at, was, I don't even have the words to say how grateful I was for it. And it's like, that's probably something that's so incredibly small to someone else. Like, oh, it's no big deal to cook a meal. Like, why would this mean anything? It's like, no, like, people don't understand the impact they have on other people's lives.
Absolutely. And kind of like full circle, even with you and I, there's so many times I've helped people with IT type stuff that I think, oh, this is dumb. It's like, what? You just want to set up your router and, you just this, and you just like wireless access points, or, oh, you just needed, to, connect your Mac to your this. And, it's huge. People go to Best Buy and they go to like, the Geek Squad to do these things that it's like, I'm like, oh, you just want to move your pictures from here to here? I can do that. I can set up your cloud repository. So it's true. I mean, you don't know that that's something that someone else struggles with and, can be a huge lift. So, it's definitely one of those things that I try to point people toward it, but again, the byproducts of it are not only are you helping, but it's going to help you more.
Yes.
So think about that concept. Like, not only are you helping, it's going to help you more. So that's a win-win. Like somebody gets helped and you get helped. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things that's better than that. So
yeah, I guess one way I thought of illustrating this is like one of the purposes of the podcast. I believe we learn more through story and narrative than we do just a slogan. Like, it's easy to say just help others, but that doesn't convey a lot of the underlying reasons why. But look through any books you've read, look through the movies that we watch, look through the TV shows, look through the stories your family and other people tell, and what's something that we've seen over and over and over? When was Scrooge happy?
Yeah.
Like, you can find story after story after story after story. And stories can be much like anything else. We're going to buy things that speak to us or matter to us. So stories that don't do anything aren't going to stick around super long. But you look at the stories that have stood the test of time, and you see that, like, again, I'll use Scrooge as an example. Grumpy, keep everything to himself, just, it's turned into even a meme. You're just being a Scrooge.
Right.
And the second he stepped out and started helping someone, it didn't just change that person's life. He changed.
Right.
Like, that's why I like sharing these stories,
right.
because that communicates it.
Right. But what's cool about Scrooge, because I love that concept too. I mentioned It's a Wonderful Life, but yep. I mean, I think subconsciously it was A Christmas Carol. But the thing about Scrooge that none of us ever got was he never got to see his impact all the way through. And if you ever got to do that, we would all be like that. We would open up the door and it would be another person entirely. Like if you ever got to see your own funeral or, present, when he goes to the past, he's like, don't show me these. These are kind of some things. But what's cool about it is it kind of shows how Scrooge got shaped, right? Like it wasn't anything bad. He just saw money as a way to be in control of his situation, right? Like his parents were dropping him off and he was like, I don't want to be in this situation where like I'm not in control anymore. And so he kind of came by it honestly. He saw that money and prestige and power meant that he would no longer be kind of, at the whim of someone else. And then when you see like present day, he's totally fine with that. He's like, whatever. But then when he goes to see the future is when he was just like, how do I change this? But what's crazy about it is without his buddy going there and just like shaking chains on him, does he ever get, one of the things that his friend says is like, I forged these chains in life, He basically tells him like, once these are forged, they stay with you. That legacy, And he's like, he says, how do I escape this? And he's like, you gotta change, you gotta pivot, Yeah. Did you ever see the movie that came out after that? They did. It was like Scrooge in present day. It was like a musical they did a couple of years ago.
I don't think so.
Oh, it had Will Ferrell, and it was a really cool take because the idea was, what happens after 5 or 6 years?
Does he revert or does he keep
not just like does he revert, but like, does he kind of like settle back in, was it just this thing? And I think that's to all of us. It's to me what happened in Vegas. It's with my dad. It's all that. Like you can get complacent.
Yes.
You can get to a place where you stop seeing humanity as your neighbor. I see it all the time. I mean, you're like, I was born here. Idaho is full. I'm like, Boise has a lot of people, but I've been in some small towns in Idaho. And just remembering where you came from and how, you got to where you are. Yeah. So I do love that you brought that, the message of Scrooge, but it's also, changing the way that you look. It's the outward look over. I mean, obviously that completely changed Scrooge's life because the next day he was like, I want the biggest goose and, I want to help Tiny Tim and, he's doubling his money and everything changes. But, it's staying in that. Yeah. And I've seen that with September 11th. For the first 5 years, but that begins to wane. We begin to forget. And so that's something in my own heart, that passion of like, don't forget your purpose.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a component of that that's not that we forget, but more that the next generation hasn't learned it the way we learned it.
Absolutely, which is kind of like how we got started on this whole conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe that is the big parenting thing, is, are we teaching our kids the true value of the human experience, that it is others? Because if you're not, then you're doing them a disservice of what the real value is.
Yeah.
And again, I do believe that some of that came organically with multiple families and big families and multiple kids and having to raise. Those things just became inherent. But when you're like, well, I don't know if I want to, disrupt I hear people say, I'm in my 30s. I don't know if I want to have kids. I don't know if I want to disrupt my career. Maybe we'll just have one. And I want to say, all that you have is this legacy. And I know your career is important. I don't want to just think you get out of college or high school and college, you put all this time. But it's not everything.
No.
It's not everything. And unfortunately, I've, found those lessons out the hard way. But, if I could give advice, it's like, to your kids, even if you only want to have one and you want to focus on your career, make sure, you're teaching them the real value is in the impact that you make. Otherwise, you really don't have any.
Yeah. And I think to bring it full circle, helping others helps you too.
Yeah.
And you can see that even in, like, when we talked about selfishness early on. If you're being selfish, you're only thinking about yourself now. And there's not much difference in taking care of others and taking care of yourself in thinking of yourself as a multitude of persons across time. Like, if you can't help others, you're not going to think about yourself in the future and take care of yourself either. You're going to be stuck only in this moment.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But, well, I think we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask, is there anything else we didn't touch on that you wanted to?
Oh, no, this is good. I mean, it feels like a nice, holistic kind of start and end in the same spot. I like what you said, though. The thing I'm passionate about is like a doctor with medicine. If I thought that this was the cure, I would be like, hey, this is something that helps you. And helping people helps you. And I'm living proof of it. And so for me, if people say, I don't know, I say, okay, well, I'll move on to the next person. But I'm telling you, I'm not looking for volunteers. I really am not. I know that sounds counterintuitive. I'm not looking for donations. I'm not looking for anyone to wear the So Good gear or do anything So Good related. I just know it'll help you. So that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
I know it will help you. And I know it's crazy. I know you're thinking to yourself, I heard people listening to different ones. If you're listening to this, like, well, I am struggling. You don't know I'm struggling. I'm like, I do know you're struggling. I've been there, but I'm telling you that helping people helps you. And that is the medicine. And you, like you said, you look down through all of history, the greatest stories, the ones that last. The Lord of the Rings. It's the young hobbit that goes and destroys the ring. It's that's what makes it compelling. It's the individual acts of kindness. And there's, not to get geeky, but there's like a whole group of people in the Lord of the Rings that have no idea what happened. Like, they just going through life. Like, they have no idea the sacrifice that have happened, of the key individuals. But each person is needed in that moment. And that's what I tell people. We need you. We need you. And not only do we need you, but you are going to help you. So, I mean,
I like it.
best way I can put it.
I like it. You put it better than I could put it.
Yeah. Thanks for the time today, man.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. We talked about a couple places people could find you. I'll also throw it all in the description.
Okay.
Is there anything that you haven't mentioned as far as where people can go to find you? I know you have the website, you're on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah. SoGood.org has all three of the social media, I'll call it. We don't do any TikTok. I don't do a ton of Facebook or Instagram, but I really want to do it so that people can see what we're doing. And they're like, oh, that looks really neat. Or if they do it, I want them to see that they can share that with somebody. Like, look, I went to the food bank. Here's all these pictures. I want to share it. So, yeah, I don't want to ever come across as anyone that's, like a social media influencer. I'm not influencing anyone on social media. I just want it to be a way that we can share what we're doing. And then, yeah, we have a page for LinkedIn as well, because business professionals, I love the idea that in business, even when I do lunch and learns for my own business, I say, hey, maybe we do a Toys for Tots for this one, or a food bank. So people come, get a free sandwich, get a free dinner, but you're bringing a can of food. So it's like, now you can feel like you're being helpful. So yeah, the sogood.org is the key for all of it. It has the Facebook and the Instagram and the LinkedIn and any sort of, ways to volunteer, ways to donate. So yeah, that's kind of the main one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming on. I have thoroughly enjoyed this.
For sure, man. Same.
I'm somewhat reluctant to end it. I don't want to stop. I'm having fun.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching the Brenton Peck podcast.